We're back, joined once again by Kenneth Timmerman, one of our country's duty experts on Iran and the dangers it poses to the rest of us. And Ken, I wanted to build on what you were just saying about this nuclear deal and the fact that it's clearing the way for Iran to realize the mullah's longstanding ambition to have nuclear weapons, to brandish them, and quite possibly to use them to achieve two goals that, since they first came to power back in the late 1970s in Iran, have been their mantra: death to Israel and death to America. Let's start with Israel. The Israeli government is clearly very, very concerned at the moment about what's in the offing. Tony Blinken, I believe, is visiting there and has been introduced to several of the countries that share Israel's concern, now Arab nations that made peace with the Israelis under the rubric of the Abraham Accords. Tell us what's happening in this diplomatic dance, and more to the point, what options do you think the Israelis are contemplating?
Well, I think for the first time, the Israelis are very seriously contemplating a kinetic response to Iran's program. I have been one of those who have cautioned for a number of years, saying Israel has many other ways of slowing down Iran's nuclear weapons programs besides dropping bombs. They have launched cyber attacks that have been relatively effective. They have sponsored groups inside Iran that have assassinated nuclear scientists who are running the program. But they're getting to the end of that rope. And I think they're getting increasingly closer to running out of time, getting closer to a kinetic response. And what's interesting is, the Abraham Accords, which have gotten the least publicity of any major diplomatic breakthrough. I mean, this is historic in nature, to have Arab countries sitting down, four of them at once, and then five of them, making peace with Israel without any apparent concessions whatsoever. An amazing accomplishment by by Israel. An amazing accomplishment by President Trump and his team. And this team of President-inept Biden has just jettisoned it. They have thrown it out the window. And they have sought to alienate countries like Saudi Arabia. Now, you can think whatever you want of the Saudis. They have a very checkered record, and I am the first to acknowledge that. But there has been change under Mohammed bin Salman, and this administration in Washington despises him, detests him, because they believe that he was involved in the murder of Khashoggi, this young so-called journalist who was actually a Qatari shill in Washington.
Well, I think that may be the pretext for it, but I think they more generally have clearly thrown in with the Iranians, and the Iranians' most important enemy, arguably, other than Israel, at least in the Arab world, certainly is Saudi Arabia. And we've had this spectacle, Ken, of the United States government removing the Iranians' proxies, speaking of terrorism, in Yemen, the Houthis, from the terrorism list, removing the Patriot missile batteries from Saudi Arabia, where they were protecting the Saudis, their oil refineries and the like, from Houthi missiles, rockets, and so on. And then turning around and saying to the Saudis, would you mind pumping some more oil because we're in a bit of a crack. This is beyond ineptitude, it seems to me. I think it is a wrecking operation, as I call it. And one of the principal beneficiaries, as we were talking about earlier in the program with Kevin Freeman, has been the Chinese. As well as, of course, the Iranians. Ken, so if the Israelis are getting serious about kinetic responses, feeling as though they've run out of runway or clock or whatever rope, what do you think an administration with the proclivities of the Biden-Harris administration would do if, let's say, for the purposes of discussion, Israel decides to launch airstrikes against Iran? My concern, I must tell you, is, first of all, we're likely to know something about it, not because the Israelis would tell us, but because of our intelligence collection and so on. Do you think, Ken Timmerman, that they would share that information with the Iranian regime, or worse, if it's possible, to actually interfere with such a strike militarily?
And all of those, and punish Israel afterwards. That's what my real fear is. Frank. This is an administration that believes it's better to be an Ayatollah in Tehran building a nuclear weapon than a Jew in your capital, Jerusalem, building an apartment to live in. They will punish Israel. They are anti-Israel, no matter what they say to the contrary. And we see this. Look at their ambassador, Thomas Nyes, who recently was at a conference in Jerusalem, and he was called by the Israelis the Palestinian ambassador because he was more Palestinian than he was American. It's extraordinary. You mentioned earlier, Frank, and I want to just put this one point in there: the people in Congress who support Iran, the supporters of Iran in the U.S. Congress. One of the primary supporters in the U.S. Congress until he became vice president of the United States was Joseph Biden of Delaware. And Biden appeared at all of these fundraisers for NIAC, the pro-Iran lobbying group, and he was supportive of the first Iran deal, and this one, I believe, he's driving it as well. So Biden himself believes that revolutionary Iran is good for America because it weakens America.
Yeah. And that's really the rub, it seems to me, and it kind of the unified field theory that we advance here most days on securing America, Ken, and that is we are dealing with an administration that seems determined to not just weaken America and not just reduce its status and not just humiliate it, but actually to wreck it. And that's what's so mind-boggling about this. It seems to be across the board. It's their domestic policies, energy security being one of them, the border being another, what they've done to us under the rubric of COVID, to say nothing of all of these, foreign policies, Afghanistan, and what you've just described here in terms of betraying our actual friends in the Middle East as to the benefit of our actual enemies. Ken Timmerman, this is deeply troubling stuff, but very vital that we all hear it. We appreciate your clarity on the subject and look forward to talking with you further about this as we learn more about this deal and hopefully can help oppose it. I appreciate the rest of you being with us for this edition of Securing America. As always, I hope you feel better equipped to join us in doing just that. And for more information about what you can do, I hope you'll turn to securingamerica.tv, our website, and that having done that, having taken aboard this information, having hopefully been in a position to now share it with others, that you will go forth and multiply.